All right, all right, all right. Cool. All right. Uh, let's see. Can people hear me? Let me turn this on to see if I can hear myself. Okay, I can hear myself. Ah, it's Julius guy. All right, cool. Yeah. I'm just trying to get this guy. He's like, yeah, yeah, I'm ready, and then every time. Okay, there he is. There he is. Okay, cool. I can quit Discord now. All right, yo, what's up, guys? Just before we start, how are you guys doing? You having a good day? Oh, let's go, Monarchist man. Really good to see you here as well. YouTube's not receiving enough video to maintain stream, bruh. Oh my gosh. No, dude, I quit Discord. I quit Discord. I'm not trying to leak anyone's. Like, that's why I told you I'm on stream. I didn't want you to say anything. Uh, anyways, it doesn't matter. I'll like edit the stream afterwards to like cut out the first like 10 minutes. Oh, what else are you doing? World Builders Ministries. Actually, why haven't I made you mod? You're always like here on my stream, so I need to make you moderator. Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, it's good to have you three. Maybe some other people will join if you know anyone who's online. Otherwise, yeah, let's just get started so we don't dilly-dally around. Okay, so just in case you guys were not here last time, I know Julius was here last time, um, but the rest of you might not have been here for the last stream, or at least not all of it. Basically, we've already covered Europe, Asia, Oceania, and so now we're covering the Americas, and we are not covering the like the descendants of the settlers. In other words, not covering like the Africans or Europeans or South Asians who came. We're only covering the Native Americans. So we're going to be looking at the Native American stuff, traditional clothing, and so yeah, let's get started. Um, am I like really like behind? Let me just hear. Oh, okay, no, I'm not that far behind. Okay, cool. All right, so let's get to the presentation. Start off the slideshow. All right, let's just make sure everyone can see. So we're gonna check in here. Okay, looks like everyone can see. All right, that's good. All right, great. Okay, so yeah, we're starting off with yeah, North American native clothing because of course Native Americans across the Americas wore a huge amount of different styles of clothing. Last time we looked at Arctic, Pacific Northwest, and Inuit. And so now we're going to look at North American, which is kind of the most standard image, especially here in Canada and the US. And so you guys will be very familiar with what we're about to see. Just going to check the chat one more time to see if anyone new is there. Otherwise, well, I'm going to get started. Okay. Looks like it's still the same three people. All right, cool. So let's get started. So we're starting off here with the Plains Apache people. And yeah, of course, one thing that we'll notice among pretty much all these people is the use of feathers. These are ceremonial and have great importance for these people. The Chiricahua are also another kind of Apache people, mainly in New Mexico, I believe, and perhaps Arizona as well. And so this is sort of more typical female attire there. The Western Apache, and again, same group of Apache people. And then we have the regular Apache. So this is a pretty good picture, I feel like, of kind of summarizing everything that I'm about to show, right? So both of the kids here are wearing the headdresses. Now, obviously, they don't actually belong to the children, they belong to the parents because the headdresses were symbols of basically a warrior, right, and what they'd achieved on the battlefield. So obviously, this kid's like what, 3 or something? This kid maybe is like 6. So they haven't achieved this, but it's nice that they get to wear it. We see that they were wearing moccasins here, which, are kind of like a softer kind of shoe that was made, specifically kind of for all kinds of weather. You have these little white things, I'm not sure what they're called. Um, and then yeah, we sort of see a lot of braiding. I mean, especially for women, but even for men. So I think this guy, right, he kind of has some kind of braid here too. And so yeah, and then of course the trousers that were pretty commonly worn, especially by the men. Women could also wear them, but it wasn't as common. All right. Here we have the Colville, who I believe lived in Montana, although I could be wrong. Before going any further, let me just check in the chat, make sure everyone can hear me well. Um, all right, nice. Looking forward to learning about the clothes of the bad music people. Are you saying that common in response to what he said or in response to something I said? Okay, it's good that you can hear me well. Native American music. I wasn't saying it in response. No, I was asking Common if he's saying it in response to what you said there. Okay, what he slash she. Oh, I like that we're using gender inclusive language in 2024. That's good. They have terrible music? I don't know. I mean, some of it's terrible for sure. I don't know if I generally classify their music as bad, but also I don't listen to it. So, can't really say that much about it. All right, so let's go back. So yeah, this is one of my favorite pictures. I just thought it looked very cool. Also, there is something I want to say, but I'll wait till sort of we get to the end of the Americas before I say more. Kunai, so these people live in British Columbia, and as many of you know, that's where I am most of the year, specifically inland British Columbia. So we still have an area called sort of Kootenai after these people. Nespelem. So this is a good example of like what an individual warrior would have looked like. Now, of course, we see he's using a gun, so and of course this is a picture, so clearly this was taken after the Europeans arrived. But yeah, he's using a gun, but otherwise it's still pretty traditional, has the whole headdress thing, lots of necklaces, the two long braids, the trousers, and then the moccasins. So it's a pretty good representative of what a lot of the men used to wear. Wishram. This is a very nice colorized picture. I mean, you can kind of tell it's colorized, but also says it up here. And yeah, again, the two braids, lots of necklaces, although the woman is likely not wearing trousers, but we can't tell. The nez percé, or the nez perce, I'm not sure how Americans would pronounce that, but it's supposed to be pronounced nez percé, which means pierced nose. And I think these people are somewhere out in the Midwest, although as Americans, if you guys know where specifically the Nez used to live, let me know. But again, this is also a very cool picture, and this is clearly the Midwest. We can see it from the background, and even the clothing, right, is kind of made to fit in with the background and all that. Also, one thing that we'll notice specifically with a lot of the women is that they would wear these kind of, I don't know, beaded things under their neck or under their earrings that would go kind of down to their waist. And then also a lot of these little tassels. The Wanapum, this is also a great picture. Um, Whoever was the photographer for this did a great job. And we can see the one feather again, like it's a girl, so she isn't really a warrior. But yeah, very nice, vibrant clothing, and even the horse looks very cool. Oh, the Walla Walla. It's interesting. I knew two kids who came from a place called Walla Walla, so it's clearly named after these people, and I think that's either Washington or Oregon. But yeah, again, very common to see the two braids. That was like really common among North American Native people. The Arapaho, who I believe are Oklahoma. I could be wrong there, but I think they're somewhere from around there. All right, quick ch chat check in to see what's going on? You have eardrums, don't rupture them by listening to Native. Oh, wow. Everyone agrees that like their music sucks. It's kind of funny. Um, Around Colorado or Nebraska. Okay, yeah, I mean, these are mainly Great Plains people after all, so makes sense. The gros ventre. Now, this is just funny because, or the gros ventre, as probably the Americans would say it, but it's pronounced gros ventre, which literally means the fat belly people. So I'm not sure if there were a little too many, you know, dad bods, when the French came and discovered, quote unquote, these people. But yeah, and we can see, both of them have just one feather, and the two men and the woman again have the typical braid on the left and braid on the right. And then they're all wearing also these big blankets, so that was also pretty common. This one's one of my favorite pictures, the Cree people, and the Cree people kind of lived in huge parts of central Canada, so one of the most prevalent groups. Um, and I think they're actually like the largest Native American group in Canada. But yeah, also other than the feather and the two braids, she also has extremely nice clothing. So very long tassels on her little cape thing, the feathers there, and very nice symmetrical kind of clothing. So yeah, this one's pretty cool. This is one of my favorite outfits. I don't know what you guys think, but I quite like that one. Oh, and then this is where this guy is a bit, I think, a bit overboard, with the feathers. The Atacamekwa, who I believe are somewhere like around Michigan, but again, I'm not 100% sure. This is all vague knowledge I have. And yeah, we can see he's initiating the kid into some kind of dance. And so that's why he has so many feathers. And then, of course, we also see the war paint too, right? So let's check in back. The Nez Percé was pronounced right. Their music is good. I wish I got donuts, bro. Oh man. Yeah. Otherwise, this picture I always thought was pretty cool. The Penobscot Scott. Um, yeah. Again, we see the one feather. And I don't know, I think her dress looks very cool. I mean, this is obviously somewhat Europeanized clothing, but still looks very nice. There's the Shinecock, as I like to call them, or the Shinnecock, probably is how you pronounce it. And they're kind of in the middle of a dance here. Um, so again, we see it with the feathers, you know, lots of feathers, especially at these dance things. Um, Again, all these little white things, I'm not sure what they're called. And yeah, more of that. The Menominee, I believe they're somewhere around Lake Superior, probably Minnesota, but I'd have to check in on that. This guy has his, traditional little hatchet thing. The Sauk people, they're also in that area, Wisconsin kind of area. This is the whole family actually. Got the, I don't know, I think it's the mother and then husband, wife, children. The Sulto. Yeah, a lot of these have French names actually. Um, and we see the little white things going all the way down to the floor, the headdress, all that. Seneca. Yeah, this is also one of my favorite pictures. I mean, this woman's probably very mixed with Europeans. Probably not, she doesn't look that native, but nevertheless, very cool clothing. Pretty simple but nice, and I always think these moccasins look cool, especially when they're decorated. The cayuse. This is a crazy kind of headband, um, or headdress, I should say. It goes all the way down to the floor. But yeah, it means that this guy clearly was very respected and had achieved a lot. Got the Lakota people, and they're related to the Dakota people. So yeah, they're kind of in that whole Dakota area, North and South Dakota. Um, we see the one feather again, the very long earrings. And yeah, very nice red as well. And I think this is just one crazy long braid, so that's kind of cool. The Ho Chunk. I always thought this name was funny just because it reminds me of like chunkiness. Um, so yeah, again, they're in a dance, lots of feathers. the Osage. So the Osage, I believe, lived somewhere in like Iowa or Missouri or somewhere in that area. And again, I think this guy is a pretty cool dramatic pose. Nice long blanket. The Pawnee, yep. So these are all Midwestern places. So Julius is from there, so maybe he has a couple things to say. Let's check in on the chat. All right, nothing's been said so far. All right, the Wapo, don't know where they are from. The Cupeño. So these people are in California, and there is sort of a separate style of clothing that the Californians wore, but some of them also just wore the standard native, North American native clothing, depending on where in California you were, of course. So the Northern Shoshone, so they're around like Wyoming, Utah, Colorado. That's where these people lived. And it's kind of cool how the clothes the horse is wearing and the women are wearing are the same. But yeah, again, see the feather, the braids, the very long tassels. The Bannock, so they're in Montana, I believe. And yeah, this guy looks pretty cool, pretty self-confident. I mean, you can see also some of them wore more of these like stocking or legging things. So we can see that over here. Again, both the men and women would wear braids and a lot of earrings, and he has a sash. Serrano, so we're back in California, very colorful. All right, and so that's it for the North American style. Now we're gonna move on to the Ojibwe. So let's just check in the chat. I don't know much about Native Americans, except some random one may have cursed my family. This is the most you thing to say right there. Yeah. All right. So let's go back. So yeah, the Ojibwe, as we can see, their clothing is fairly different from a lot of the standard North American style that we normally see. Probably the most obvious thing, right, is that they're wearing these, round hats, which generally, everyone else was wearing a headdress, as we can see here, 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 you know, here, here. So that's one big difference. I mean, this guy has the braids, but this guy doesn't. And then also we can see that they have, both these men are wearing a sash, and also they're wearing moccasins still, but oh, I do. All right, just give me All right, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. I see. Can you guys still hear me? I think you can. You should be able to. Okay. Yeah, no, someone I'd applied to this job and they called me back, but unfortunately, I didn't get a spot. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir. Always been loyal. So thank you to the other two people watching. Don't know who you guys are. Assume it's Monarchist Man, maybe someone else. Yeah. All right, so let's get back to our presentation. Yeah, so what I was saying about the Ojibwe, right, basically is that clothing's more simple, right? Looks a bit more European, and especially women's clothing is kind of just like, you know, top and a skirt, and that's it. But I still think it looks cool. All right, so that's it with the Ojibwe now. Let's move on to Mohawk. All right, so yeah, here is the Mohawk clothing. And so we can see it is obviously very similar to a lot of the other North American clothing, but it is still a little bit different. For example, we see that um, he isn't really wearing a headdress, just a lot of different feathers. A lot more fur is being worn, of course, more of these stocking kind of things. The moccasins, they still have it and they're still decorated. The woman is wearing trousers, although she's also wearing a kind of a dress over it. And yeah, generally a bit simpler style. All right, and now we're going to move to Northeast American. Let's just check the chat. Okay, thank you, Sir Welch. I appreciate you still being here. Um, I will, yeah, just open something up real quick, and then I'll get right back to. Um, Sorry, Wi-Fi is a bit laggy. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Oh well, okay, whatever. If it works, it works. I'll just get back to presenting. So Northeast American. So yeah, I create a separate Northeast American category because what you guys will notice is that Northeast American clothing, it is similar to just regular North American native clothing, but there are some differences which we will soon discover here. Mainly that it is a little more, I guess, decorated and over the top as compared to just the regular Native American clothing. All right, I do not know what's going on with this Wi-Fi here. Uh, it's working fine for the stream, but like not for my phone, which is a bit annoying because I had some notes there. That's why this sounds probably a little more free flowy because I don't have my notes in front of me and they're not loading. But whatever, it doesn't matter. I feel like I know enough of it. So let's look at some examples. The Piscataway, who I believe are around Maryland or Virginia or Delaware. Okay, so take note of this. When we get a better picture, I'll explain it more, but this is one of the kind of distinguishing things. Yeah. All right. So here's a great example, the Mataponi people. So one of the biggest differences between just the regular North American and the specifically Northeast American style of clothing is the kind of headdress, right? So still a feather kind of headdress, but this is much more circular. Um, it kind of all originates in one place in the center and then just kind of branches out. So it's held together by this headband. And personally, I don't think it looks as good, but that's just my opinion. And so yeah, we see that is being worn. Although there are of course other headdresses. So we see this or other things. And we see a lot of kind of this leather, hide kind of clothing that they're wearing here. And yeah, some face paint too, pretty common. All right. Now this is probably one of the craziest examples. The Nansemond, like the amount of just stuff on this guy's body really is insane. I mean, of course, we have this entire like I don't know even know headdress on this guy's back, and then all the feathers here, the bear skin, the regular clothes, all the kinds of necklaces, the crazy amount of face paint, and then the feathers that go up, behind, straight up, and down from his face. And then even the guy next to him, he has that round kind of head style. So, personally, this is way too much for me, but this was how a lot of them would dress, especially for special occasions. So yeah, I just want to hear what your guys' thoughts on this are. So I'll go back to the chat, see what's going on there. Let's see if my notes have loaded by now. I hope they have. I don't think they have. Anyways, so back to this. Yeah. Okay, and so that's it for Northeast American. And so now let's move on to Southeast American. All right. So Southeast American is characterized by being a little less elaborate. I would say a bit more simple, compared to. Um, oh, it might finally be loading. Is it loading? Please, please, please. Probably not loading. Okay, well, Southeast American clothing, yeah, is more simple compared to Northeast American clothing. Although it's probably a bit more elaborate than kind of just like the regular, or sorry, it's more simple compared to Northeast American, but it's still less simple than probably just North American. But we'll notice that there's a lot more white that's being worn and kind of it's a bit baggier. So for example, you have the Okanichi here, who I believe were in Georgia. And so you can see, right, a lot more flowy, a lot more of these little white things going on. And we again still have the one feather. We have a lot of these, I don't know, string things coming out from there, from his clothing. And again, obviously it's a dance. We have the saponi, and again we see the same kind of thing, the feathers here, the big one big feather on his head, and then a lot of these little tassels and little strings and all that coming out from under his clothes. And then yeah, he also has this. I don't know if this is really supposed to be a weapon, probably some kind of ceremonial weapon, but I'm not sure. All right. But sometimes I feel like actually it could be even more elaborate than Northeast American clothing. So these are the Kushata people who, again, I think are around Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, they go hard with the decoration. I mean, they all have all these feathers coming out from their head, and then they also have all these little strings coming down under from their chest, from their hips, from their waist. Um, And yeah, and then also these like little wing things. I'm not even sure what exactly I would call them. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And based on the numbers, I don't know if these guys are in some kind of competition, but if I were to choose my favorite, probably him. I mean, his looks cool too, but it's also rainbow, so I don't know what that means. So oh, never mind. It's Louisiana. It says it right here, so I guess that's where they came from, Louisiana. But this guy, we can see a little more what's underneath all this stuff. And so we see he has the little decorated patterns all over, and then just a lot. It seems like it's pretty heavy. All right, and so that's it with Southeast American. Now we're going to move on to Chickasaw and Choctaw. So let's go. Okay, yeah, he's right. They're from Louisiana, close to Texas. All right, so Chickasaw and Choctaw. So Chickasaw and Choctaw, you guys will see, is actually quite different from pretty much all the other kind of Native American clothing. And the reason why will become obvious. So let's just take a look. First of all, we can see it's much, 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 much simpler. We don't have any of the headdresses. We don't have any feathers. Um, we don't even really have the moccasins per se. This is much more of a European look. And if I were to guess, probably their clothing changed after their introduction to the Europeans, because I think the Chickasaw and Choctaw were part of the so-called civilized tribes that the U.S. just decided to kick out regardless. And so yeah, it looks much more kind of like a European style of dress, with a little apron thing here. But it is still unique and it is still distinctly native, and I think that's what's really cool. I love the lace work here, the little stripes, and even though it's pretty simple, I think it looks very good, especially with the one color of the dress. And then the man here, as we can see, is wearing trousers and more European style trousers as well as a hat. But again, the shirt looks quite cool, so I like this quite a bit. Okay, and now let's move on to the Seminole people. So what we'll see with the Seminole people is again looks much more European. We have much more loose fitting, longer dress. Uh, the baby has feathers, but other than that, they're not really wearing any feathers. And yeah, relatively simple, compared to most of what we've seen here so far. Okay, now we'll get to Californian. So as I'd said earlier, Californian clothing is fairly distinct. So here we have an example of the Tolowa. So it actually took me a long time before I realized that this woman's actually not wearing a shirt at all. So the only thing that's covering her parts, let's say here, are all the necklaces and then this little piece of cloth. And yeah, we can see that she's not wearing any shoes. It's almost kind of like a grass skirt, but just goes down a lot longer. And it sort of makes sense given the climate and the heat in California. I can imagine. I've been there once, but it was like one night. All right, and so here is a better example, kind of what it would look like for both genders. So these are the Nisenan people, and we can see that the men just don't wear any shirt or any shoes for that matter. And they're wearing this like weird face thing. I'm not sure what I would call that, but you guys can see what it is. And just simple white trousers, that's all they wear. And yeah, the women as well, they're wearing like a skirt that's somewhat long, but not too long with tassels. And then they're also all wearing feathers there as well. The Chumash people. So I think these are more Northern California, and you can kind of tell because it looks more like the North American style of clothing. Then we have the Tataviam people, and yeah, this is very, very, very simple. We can see, right, men. Well, I mean, these are boys, but they aren't wearing any top. Then the girls, just wearing a simple dress and yeah, pretty light clothing. All right, and so that's it for California. And now let's move on to Western Arizona. So before we go that, let's just check the chat one more time. I think this is the last part of the USA as well. So for all the Americans, yeah. All right, so here we have the Zuni people. So again, Western Arizona, right, is where these people come from. And so we can see it's a very unique style of clothing. Um, they're wearing not trousers, but just these like leg putty things. And yeah, no shoes. And then they also have an interesting kind of bob cut, shorter hairstyle. And yeah, then pretty just simple tunic on top of it all. And another example are the Kakopa people. And this, I always liked this picture. I always thought it looked quite cool. So yeah, she's wearing a pretty simple dress and then a cape. And yeah, that's about it. Hopi. The Hopi have a very interesting and unique hairstyle. So we can see that over here. And again, pretty similar, right? Just one simple dress and then a cape. And yeah, no shoes either. It's pretty hot out there in the deserts of Western Arizona. All right, and so yeah, guys, that's it for the United States. I want to hear your guys' thoughts because I know you guys are American, and then we'll move on to Mexican clothing. Native American plays better than the music. This guy and his music, man. This guy. Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot you're like a mix of everything. No, but you know what? Regardless of your native heritage, I mean, I agree. The attire was pretty impressive, especially I find Native American, or not Native American, North American was my favorite. The Northeast and Southeast went a bit too hard, but I also like the Chickasaw and Choctaw clothing. And yeah, even the Western Arizonan was kind of nice. I'm a composer, so well, attire is based, keep in mind. Okay, finally found my script. I'm sorry, guys, it took me so long, but I'm back to my script now so I can explain officially what I have not been able to explain up until now. All right, so let's go back. Now we get to Mexican. So yeah, Mexican clothing resulted from the mixing of native and European styles into the recognizable style we all know today. Men would wear all white, which included both shirts and trousers, and they would wear a sombrero or a similar looking straw hat. For footwear, they would usually wear shoes or sandals, and women would wear a dress consisting of what tended to be a white top and a colored skirt decorated with striped embroidery and floral motifs. So let's take a look. So one example are the Duwamish people, which is weird because they live in Canada, but I don't know. Unless maybe I got the wrong picture, that could always have been the case. But maybe they just somehow got the style. But yeah, either way, regardless of whether the Duwamish wore this or not, this is an excellent example of Mexican clothing, right? We see the sombrero, we see the all white, the trousers, the shirt, shoes, and then the women are wearing, you know, a relatively simple dress with a floral motif. And so yeah, that's an example. Another example here, right? The Zoque people. And pretty similar. Main difference is they're not wearing shoes here, at least except for her. And they're also wearing a uh, little necktie or something around their neck there. All right, the Zapotec. So again, looks much more similar to this. And we can see the woman is also wearing some kind of hat here too. But yeah, very nice floral embroidery over here. And this time he's wearing black trousers. And another example are the Itza people, and they mainly live in northern Guatemala. So yeah, technically not Mexican, but it's right next to Mexico. And we can see that they're wearing pleated clothing, so that's when you have kind of several layers, so to say. So we have one here, one here, one here, and one here, right? And so again, we can see the main color is white. They're all wearing some kind of round hat or sombrero. And yeah, women wear the floral motif, so looks pretty cool. All right, now we get to move on to Totonacan. So the Totonacan clothing was similar to Mexican clothing, although it is recognizable due to its usage of white as pretty much the only color worn, and the dresses that would only go down to the calf. Now, if they were decorated, it was only at the fringes, such as at the bottom or the top, and they would wear a mantle over the top. So sandals were sometimes worn, although oftentimes no footwear was worn. And then men would also wear white, but they would wear trousers, obviously, instead of a dress, and would wear what is now considered a cowboy hat or sombrero. Right, so here's an example. Here are the Otomi people. And so, yeah, this is more central eastern Mexico. That's an example. All right, and then now we're going to move on to the Maya. So Maya women were known for their distinctive kind of dress, which was calf length, made of a main color and decorated in a square near tartan style. And then men, on the other hand, would dress completely in white, with their outfit consisting of a shirt, trousers, and a straw hat. And then they would wear shoes, which were usually sandals. So here's some examples. Here's the Tzotzil, and I always liked this picture. I thought it looked pretty cool. Um, and this looks like it's made out of wool. I'm not exactly sure if that's the case. The Kakchikel. I think these are girls all going to school because otherwise I don't really understand why they're all standing so close to each other. But yeah, it looks pretty cool, especially since they're all dressed the same. All right, and that's it, guys. That is it for the Americas. Um, Now, you might ask, why haven't you covered South America? I will get to that very soon. We're going to go to Africa next. But before we do that, tell me what you guys think of Mexican, and then I'll explain what's going on with South America. Okay, yeah. Wait, what about South America? Yeah, okay. All right, let's just see what you guys thought about Mexican, and then I'll explain what's going on with South America. Interesting. Okay, glad you liked it. Okay, so let me explain what's going on with South America. So, obviously, when I was doing this, traditional clothes of the world, it's not like I forgot the entire continent of South America and I guess also Central America and the Caribbean for that matter. But the reason I have not included them in this part of the presentation is because basically I just could not find a good map of like basically where the native people of South America once lived. As in, for example, if you look up a map of, you know, South or North American native people and then a map, right? It'll show you basically the traditional boundaries of all the different ethnic groups that were once living there. You can find that for Canada, you can find it in the US, you can find it in Mexico. But for South America, I couldn't find anything. Now you can find out where the modern native people live, but obviously most of them have either died out or have greatly reduced the territory they once owned, so it becomes practically useless. That's reason number one. Reason number two is because there wasn't really any consistent clothing style I found. Kind of each group had their own sort of style. And so at the end of this presentation, I will have one that includes other, basically including people from all around the world whose clothing style didn't really fit into any of the categories I've made so far. And so you will see some South American people in there. But that pretty much is the explanation of why I'm skipping directly to Africa now. Yeah. All right. So, we ready to go to the dark continent? If we are, let's have an aye captain in the chat and then we'll go. I'm making this sound like so exotic when I've literally lived there. All right, Africa, yeah. Okay, Africa is my favorite country in the world. Yes, spoken like a true American. Yeah. All right, so let's go. Start off with Ethiopian. So Ethiopian men would wear the Ethiopian suit, which was a long sleeve, knee-length shirt and matching trousers, and they were usually white and worn at formal occasions. Women would also wear white, wearing an ankle-length dress that was relatively simple with some stripes and embroidery. Then headbands were decorated with ornaments and were often worn, and sandals were the most common type of footwear. Let's look at some examples. So first, you have the Kambata people, and I always like this picture, uh, mainly because she's attractive. But the clothing's okay too. Um, but yeah, pretty simple. Not much to say here. All right, then Oromo. So here's a good example. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of them were wearing the mask, which is hella cringe. But I'm not going to get into politics here. But you can tell me your opinion of the mask in the comments section. But yeah, we can see just like weirdly enough, just like in Mexico, predominant color is white, fairly simple, but we can see, a couple of stripes that are worn here. And yeah, pretty simple. Women pretty much all wear dresses, usually ankle length. Here, maybe a little bit less. But yeah, that's pretty much. And keep in mind the Oromo are also like the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia. All right, the Afar. So this is quite cool. So this woman is also still wearing white, but we can see a lot of these ones are wearing blue. We can also see a lot of them are wearing these gold necklaces, which look very cool. Um, the gold headbands we see that they're wearing. And yeah, looks looks pretty interesting, but also relatively simple as well. They're the Tigray people. So these people mainly live in like northern Ethiopia and then Eritrea as well. And so, not sure if this lady's a Muslim or not, but if she was, wouldn't surprise me, and hence explains kind of the, you know, little wraparound scarf. All right, then we have the Amhara, who are the not the most populated or not the most populous group in Ethiopia, but they're the ones who've held the most power for the longest time. And their language, Amharic, is also the most common. So we can see again, relatively simple, just a white dress, but with this nice embroidery, especially going down the middle. I also have to say, like these people are all like smiling, like it's very nice. They're very happy people despite, the poverty and all that exists in the region. So that's pretty cool. All right, and then we will move on to Somali. All right, let's see. Ethiopia's based COVID mask is BS. Sometimes a symbol of purity or reverence, the color white. Yeah, that could also be a thing. Ethiopia is a beautiful continent and the country of African. True, I agree. I agree with that. All right, so now let's look at Somali clothing, which was very similar to Ethiopian clothing, by the way, but was unique because of its design. And the woman would wear a long ankle-length dress that would be tied on one shoulder and generally had a striped pattern. And it was relatively tight to the body, but not extremely so. I mean, it is an Islamic country after all. And then over their torso, they would wrap cloth to form a kind of overgarment known as a kitenge that would extend to right above the knees. So yeah, this is basically what I'm talking about. This is the kitenge, um, this little part over here. And then as we can see, right, very long garment, sandals, fairly simple. All right, and then now we move on to the Great Lakes region. So the Great Lakes clothing was characterized by the wearing of many beaded necklaces that would go down below the breast by its women, and they would also wear a similar style of beaded jewelry as a headband around their head and as an armband and footband. They were also notable for going bald or having very little hair. And then clothing would be fairly similar with an ankle-length dress that would be covered by an apron from the waist down to just above the hemline. And then men's clothing, meanwhile, would also be pretty similar, with them also wearing a robe, but it would go down to the knee instead of the ankle. And they would wear their famous checkered blankets as an overgarment, which would cover most of the bodies. Now, footwear was not generally worn, but sometimes sandals would be worn. Also, keep in mind when I say Great Lakes, obviously, not that I think anyone would think this, but it's not the Great Lakes of North America. We're referring mainly to Lake Victoria and other lakes in that region. All right, so here's an example. Here are the Rendille people. And yeah, we see the headband that's made out of kind of a lot of beads and jewelry. We have a whole bunch of necklaces here, like a crazy amount. Fairly simple clothing, again, mainly red being worn. The arbor, same deal. Um, it's actually it was only very recently I realized they were not wearing any kind of top. And yeah, there will be some nudity in this part because depending on where you are in Africa, there's, some people didn't always wear clothes or fully anyways. And yeah, we can see again they went bold, which is quite unusual, especially for women in most of the rest of the world. Turkana again, really similar to the Rendille. And yeah, main thing that stands out are the insane amount of beaded necklaces that the women are wearing. Samburu, same deal. Now keep in mind, probably you guys didn't know this, but maybe you did. I used to live in Kenya, so actually we would see people like this occasionally, especially if you went out into the countryside. These are the Ikoma people, and here we can see the famous checkered blankets that the men would wear, right? Could be like big, squares here or more little squares? All right, sorry guys, got interrupted there for a sec, but yes, I'm back. Alrighty. Okay. So now moving all the way from East Africa, we're going to West Africa to discuss Akan clothing. So Akan clothing, by the way, was some of the most vibrant in the world, with men wearing the Ghanaian smock, which was a plaid smock that has been worn since the 17th century, and was only worn by Ghanaians until it became more popular with Africans during the 1990s. These smocks were very colorful, with several squares showcasing the many different patterns and motifs, and they were draped over the shoulder. For footwear, sandals were the most common type of shoe. Oh my gosh. People keep calling me. I'm not even joking. Like now my dad's calling. Just give me. All right, I'm back. Hopefully, I might get a call again, so bear that in mind. Anyways, we'll see. And then, yeah, women would wear an ankle-length dress that tended to also be plaid, but was often worn with many necklaces. Okay, so here's an example, and again, I think this looks very cool, right? Very nice, bright colors. You see the Ghanaian smock here, draped over one shoulder, worn with sandals as well, and lots of cool different colors, with each square having a different pattern on it. Here's another example of the Asante people. They actually had an empire that was kind of like seen as the proto-Ghanaian state before the British conquered it. And we can see that even the women would also drape it over their shoulder, but their clothing was different compared to what the men were wearing. The Sifwi people, again, another great example. We see each square here has a different kind of motif. And we can all see that red, yellow, and blue are the most common, and green too, are the most common colors. The Nzema. I always thought this picture looked very cool. She has a lot of nice gold necklaces and a couple of bracelets too. And yeah, so then that's it for the Akan people. So now let's look at the Hausa people. So in case you don't know, the Hausa, they live in northern Nigeria, and their clothing was a unique blend of West African and North African styles. So one unique aspect was the alasho, which was a long turban that was worn around the head and neck, which is similar to the Tuareg litham, but also left some of the lower neck free. And then the main clothing was the bubu, which sounds funny, but it's basically a flowing wide-sleeved robe that was decorated with embroidery and was worn on special occasions. And yes, it was worn with a turban, a pair of trousers that would start sort of wide at the top and then narrow at the bottom. And then underneath this would be worn a variety of shoes. Some of them would be open-toed and others would not. So here's an example. Now this, of all the pictures I've seen in my entire slideshow, I think this might be the coolest looking group of people ever. Not necessarily like their clothes look the best or whatever, although they do look cool. But it's just like when when you and the homies show up, when the gang reunites, right? This is exactly the picture I imagine in my head, right? So looks very cool. I love the vibes of this, and we can see right there Alasho, or specifically Hausa kind of turban that covers not just the top of their head, but also sort of the bottom as well. This guy has a tight, this guy has a loose, this guy sort of has it in the middle. So it comes in a variety of forms, but yeah, pretty much we can see There's a lot of variety. Each one has very different pattern and, combination of colors, but we can see the similarity there. So Hausa looks pretty cool. All right, before we get to the rest of Nigeria, let's just check the chat a little bit. Yeah, sometimes it's a rank matter. Yeah, for sure. I didn't really have time to do this today because I don't want to make the stream excessively long. But yeah, rank plays a huge role in like the kinds of colors and patterns that we see. So, yes, so now we move on to no northern Nigerian clothing, which was known for being quite colorful. Men would generally wear an ankle or knee-length robe, which is usually red or blue and had some kind of stripe pattern. And if it was ankle length, then Sokoto trousers would be worn underneath the robe. Then women would wear several thick necklaces and an ankle length dress, and usually be blue or red. And then a wide variety of headgear would be worn by men and women, with some examples being the fez, the head tie, the turban, or a short round cap. So he started off with the Kanuri people here, and they lived in, not lived, I mean, they still live in northeast Nigeria. So this guy is sort of wearing a more traditional African kind of hat, but there's a lot going on in this picture. Here we have the Fula people, who are one of the largest ethnic groups, not just in West Africa, but in all of Africa for that matter. And we can see the henna designs on her hand and arm, this sort of turban thing that she's wearing, and then the necklace. But yeah, relatively simple, all blue. The Jabo people. So this picture is sort of what I imagine in my mind that Nigeria would look like. The sandals, the white robe, which is the bubu, and yeah, playing a drum. Here we have the Igala people. They look pretty cool. So this thing is called a head tie, and it was very common in West Africa. And then this guy's also wearing sort of a fez-looking thing, and it is sort of matching colors, but relatively simple color-wise. The Asan people, so they're a little more central of Nigeria. And yeah, we can see this guy's wearing more of a robe than, let's say, trousers. The Ikwere, now I always thought she looked, I mean, not just her face, but just like everything. Looks very nice here. Very unique necklace, headbands, and decorations. And then a very nice dress as well. And nice face too. So the Ikwere, they're more, again, sort of central, not as far north. The Gabagi. This is a very cool portrait. I always liked it. This dress she's wearing actually sort of looks like a sarong in the sense that it's like kind of cone shaped or cylindrical shaped, I should say, wrapped around. Um, and yeah, he's wearing almost like what looks like a mix of a fez and a head tie. But yeah, again, relatively simple colors, but very well done because you can make simple look good. This is a great example. Relatively simple but aesthetic designs. And we see blue as a common color. There's some blue there, blue here. This first guy's also wearing blue. So blue seems to be a common color worn over there. And he's wearing some more Western style clothing underneath over there. And then, of course, the watch. The Idoma people. Now, again, this is red, which is also very common kind of kind of color with some black. And yeah, she's more, it's not really a head tie. This is kind of just directly tying the cloth around her hair. You can see both the men and the women are wearing these thick necklaces, or I shouldn't say the necklace is thick, but they have these um, little metal things around them. Here's the Tikar. This guy looks pretty cool. And here we can see him wearing the Sokoto pants over which he has the robe. Again, they're matching. Again, he's wearing the necklace and sort of the head thing. And also another thing too, I think of all the groups, this and maybe the Southern Nigerians too. It's like no group I've seen so many couples, like couple here, couple there, couple there. She's probably at a wedding, couple here, another couple there. So that's pretty cool. Now we'll move on to southern Nigeria. Southern Nigerian was some of actually the fanciest clothing in the entire world. Men would wear the agbada, which is a large flowing ankle-length robe known as a awoseke or awosoke, sorry, an undervest known as an awotele, trousers known as a shokoto, and a soft hat known as a fila, which can be lined with cotton. However, what made southern Nigerian clothing most recognizable was the gele, which was a head tie worn by women for special occasions that is round and that fans out at the top. Then beneath this, it would wear a relatively tight wrap-around ankle-length dress, which would be embroidered with a lot of white lace. So let's look at some examples. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when I say the gele. You'll see this for all the pictures, right? It's this head tie that is round and is super unique. You don't see this anywhere else in the world. Again, once again, we see the same kind of necklaces being worn here. Um, and yeah, looks pretty cool. Not super fancy or complicated per se, but very nice white lace embroidery going on here. Here is another example. So we see the gele being worn on the head, the relatively tight dress that is being worn here with very cool, you know, wide open sleeves. And then the man over here is wearing the fila hat, right, which sort of bends over on one side. And he has the Sokoto trousers and then the overall vest being worn on top of it. Isoko, right, same thing. Um, he has a different kind of hat, but still kind of the same. And again, we also see another thing I notice is they're both wearing necklaces, but generally the men's necklace is a lot longer than the woman's, which usually tends to be much more around the neck. And again, we see the embroidery. Also, again, another thing is they all are matching in terms of the style. So these match, these match, these match. These guys don't really match per se, but you sort of get my point. This is another example of people matching. Now, this is probably the nicest gele I've seen. Very well decorated, very symmetrical. And here we see again the white lacing and embroidery all over, especially at the bottom here. And then the man, we see he's not really wearing trousers this time. He's just wearing the robe and then the shirt on top of it. I should also mention a little bit about these people, sorry, about where they're actually from. The Yoruba are some of the most dominant people in Nigeria, and they're more kind of south central. The Igbo, they are more southeastern Nigeria. The Ijaw. Now, I thought this was probably the fanciest I've seen, perhaps anywhere in Africa. So not only do they have the extremely fancy um, gele head tie, but then they also have very fancy dresses underneath as well. And again, pretty much matches. Also, the other thing too, other than this picture, of course, every single one of these are wedding pictures, right? Wedding, 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 wedding. And so I guess these people really know how to dress up for a wedding, and also probably a lot of them are just getting married. So very cool. This is definitely one of my favorite styles anywhere in the world. And so before we move to North Central Africa, and let's go back to the chat, see what some people think. Yeah, a lot of Muslims do dress well. I agree with that. Although, keep in mind, the southern Nigerians, they're Christians, and the northern Nigerians we showed you earlier are, um, yeah, Muslim. Yeah, marriage is considered very vital and sacred. Yeah, and I agree, and that's how it should be, of course. All right. Any other thoughts before we move back to the presentation? All right. Well, it looks like nothing else has been said, so I will move back. All right, North Central Africa. I don't really have anything to say, so let's just delve straight into it. Oh yeah, I remember why. Yeah, this is because these are these are the people who I didn't write a script because there's nothing to write because well, I think you can see they didn't wear any clothes except for some weird reason necklaces and these like uh I guess why am I forgetting the word now? Bracelets and whatever these things on the foot would be called, the foot version of a bracelet. But yeah, North Central African clothing was known for just being non-existent. And it is kind of the first area I've covered where people went completely naked, because even West Papuans, at least they wore like the penis gourd, so they had something covering, but yeah, straight up nothing. Now, some people would like to think, oh, all Africans were like this before colonization. It's not true. I mean, we just looked at Nigeria, which is like the complete opposite. Um, and so, yeah, by North Central Africa, I mainly mean places like Northern DRC, Central African Republic, that area. But this is by no means the norm across the entire continent. All right, here's another example, the Nuer people, and newer. Yeah, and they lived in, well, still do live in Sudan. And again, we see he's wearing nothing except this armband thing. All right, so now we'll move on from North Central Africa to West Central African. And so it's actually some of the most fascinating in the entire world because men would wear these grass skirts that went below the knees, but it wasn't over there because they would also wear grass shirts, trousers, gloves, and shoes. And to cover their faces, they wore large wooden masks with a drawn face and a massive protruding part above it. So you might be wondering, what does this look like? Well, here are some examples. We have the Congo people, and I think unless you're really stupid, you should probably figure out, what part of Africa the Congo people lived in, the Shamba, and oh shoot, I realized I I used the wrong part of the script for this. Sorry, I will redo this part. Basically, West Central African clothing is mainly known for the men going shirtless. So the Shamba, probably the most obvious thing, right, is the crazy amount of earrings that this woman is wearing, although she's also topless as well. Yao people, again, topless. Same with the Hehe people, and they lived in Tanzania. All right. So sorry, this is what I was referring to, right? So we see the man here, they are wearing a grass skirt, but then also grass shirt, the trousers, and even gloves and shoes. So this is some of the most crazy, unique clothing. Like, look at this. I imagine one day you're walking, just down the road, and then you see these two people, in your way. That's going to be pretty interesting. Yes. So about the Congo, yes, he is correct. They had a full-on Catholic kingdom with powerful knightly orders because the Congo were very influenced by the Portuguese, which is interesting because then Congo itself ended up being taken over by the Belgians and French. But I guess a lot of the original Congo area is now just in Angola, so I guess it still is somewhat Portuguese to this day. But yeah, tell me what you guys think of this, and then we'll move on. Oh yeah, Belgium had no reason to do all the stuff they were doing in the Congo. Also, F Belgium itself as a country. Can't tell if it's a holy mass or a warrior mass. Honestly, could be both. Honestly, could be both. All right, so now let's. Oh, here's another group, the Ovimbundu, who live somewhere around eastern Angola. I mean, again, imagine walking down the street one day and then you run into this guy. I think this guy definitely was more religious, but seriously, right? Everything he's wearing is some kind of grass or similar clothing fabric. All right, so we'll now move on to Southeastern African clothing. So, Southeastern African clothing did not consist of much. mostly just being a little loincloth-like skirt that didn't extend very far down the thigh, and occasionally something wrapped around the leg. And then men and women would both go topless. So what are some examples of this? The Kuria people. So I believe they're either in Kenya or Tanzania. And yeah, it's pretty interesting because I mean, he has these huge elephant tusks, a lot of feathers being worn here. Here's another example, the Shona people, who are the main group in Zimbabwe, actually. And so, yeah, we can see kind of this raggedy looking style where he has, yeah, he has like these kind of animal skins on him and all that. The most well-known, and perhaps maybe even the most well-known group in perhaps all of Africa, except maybe well, sub-Saharan Africa, except maybe the Somalis, the Zulu people, of course. Um, but yeah, we can see they didn't really wear that much. So these are, other than this guy, these are all women. And yeah, we can see they're all topless and they're wearing, I mean, they are wearing this little skirt here, but that's about it. Um, and some necklaces. And yeah, that's really all. And yes, that is it for Africa. So we have now completed Africa, and we only have now the Afro-Caribbean people, and then we're done with the people of African descent. And then we will get to, oh, actually, sorry, there is one other area I forgot. We haven't covered Madagascar yet. But before we get to the Caribbean, let's go back to the chat. Do y'all remember Kuriwa? Dude was crazy. Yeah. I think Mr. Julius here might know a little thing or two about Kuriwa, Zimbabwe, but who knows? Who knows? All right. Now, let's get to Afro-Caribbean. So Afro-Caribbean clothing was obviously inspired by European and specifically Southwestern European clothing, although of course has an Afro and Caribbean flair to it. Women would wear white underskirts on top of which they wore overskirts, which were colored, usually in dynamic bright primary colors. And the dresses tended to be long and flowy and were often pleated. Now several kinds of headgear would be worn, but the most common was a square or rectangular piece of cloth that was folded to display various amount of peaks. Meanwhile, men would usually just wear trousers and a white shirt, sometimes covered with a vest, and if hats were worn, it was usually a straw hat for both genders. So here is an example, and yeah, just general Afro-Caribbean look. Very nice. We can see, the different pleats that we see here, the white underskirt and then the colored overskirt. Afro St. Lucian, right? That's obviously St. Lucia, where they wore this. Again, we see the underskirt and the more African designed overskirt that we have over here. Afro Guyanese, again, same structure, fairly simple, and that's Guyana, of course. Afro Cuban, and right now this is much more Spanish inspired. If you guys remember all the way back at the start of the presentation, we're looking at Spanish clothing, right? It's kind of known for these little pleats at the bottom of the dress. But still has that Caribbean look to it, especially with this head tie that all three women are wearing. And one of my favorites, actually, this one might be one of my favorite pictures in the entire slideshow, the Afro-Panamanian woman, which obviously is Panama, right? And again, you can definitely see the very clear Spanish influence here in terms of the style. And so that's it. Now we're going to go to the Malagasy people. And the reason why is because the Malagasy is quite different. Also, keep in mind, this is the final clothing style I am looking at in this presentation. So I'm so glad we made it to the end. And thank you, of course, Julius and Sir Welch, for having made it this far. And then we'll just look at other random examples and then it will be over. But yeah, let's look at some Malagasy clothing, which was usually consisting of a large piece of fabric that was worn around the entire body, usually going from the shoulders to the knees, although it could be a little shorter, sometimes going from up under the armpits to the calves. And then it looked like a blanket and was often striped, but didn't have to be and was worn by both men and women. For men, straw hats were the most common headgear, while for women it was a veil or other type of cloth. And although sandals were sometimes worn, it wasn't that common. Malagasy people were also well known for the lamba, which is a garment that is wrapped around the waist, just like the sarong. Because actually, if you didn't know, Malagasy people originally descends from Southeast Asians of all people. So let's look at an example. So here are the Sihanaka people. Um, Another example, the Bara. So we can see um, the yeah the robe that starts right under the armpits and goes down to the feet there. And again, all of them are wearing something striped. The Antemoro, again, sort of like that, but looks more just like your traditional kind of dress. The Tanala, same deal going on over here. The Vezo people, you can see this was taken during the time of French rule. It says coiffure de femme Vezo, so it's looking more at their hairstyle, but yeah, for the purposes of this, we're looking more at the clothes. Here are the Antan Karana, and for some reason, a lot of Malagasy words start with Antan. I'm not sure exactly what that means. But yeah, it kind of looks like your typical dress with a lot of floral patterns or other kind of things or stripes. Here are the Bits Simisaraka. So this is much more European influenced as we can see, but still retains some of the original Malagasy look. And guys, that's it. We have now covered, well, I mean, we haven't really covered South America, we will here, but we have covered every single continent. So I'm pretty glad we um, finally made it. Malagasy, when Southeast Asian languages aren't shit. 100% best picture, the Afro Pyramid. Yeah, I agree. I love that picture. So thankful I've been able to do it. Yeah, thank you guys, of course, for watching. Oh, okay. It said one person's watching, so I didn't know you're here. Thanks for also being here, Sir Welch. Yeah. So we have completed, yes, all the continents, and so now we're just going to look at a random array of others, and I won't really be giving any information because it doesn't fit into any style. I'll just let you guys look and, think for yourself. And then after that, we would have completed the presentation. So that's going to be awesome. Okay, let's do it. So we start with the Bonda people, and yeah, I think there's a reason why no one else adopted this style of clothing. I'm not going to describe it, but it's pretty funny, especially like here. Just look, this looks so goofy. It's just funny. And I believe they are in Southeast Asia somewhere, although I could be wrong. So I need to check that. Yeah, maybe someone can look up where they live. The Yakut. And so these people, I actually really love their clothing. So they live in Siberia, and so they are a native Siberian people. And although it somewhat looks like, other Siberian or Mongolian clothing, it is also pretty different. And so I think it looks quite nice, especially the white. Hakka people, I think we can figure out what country this is. If the face wasn't obvious enough, this should do the trick over there. Hmong. So they also lived in China, and they had some of the nicest looking clothes. Actually, they're in the thumbnail of this video for a reason. Um, and so they speak the Hmong Mien languages, or some of them, of course, not all of them. And Buyang, I only include the Buyang because they're known for being the one ethnic group in the world where the women never ever cut their hair, and so they have this crazy long hair. So even though I don't think their clothes are anything like worth noting, I had to include it because of that. The Sting people, I mainly just included because this smoking picture looked hella cool. So, you know, Muang. So I believe they live in Vietnam, or maybe Laos or Thailand, but sort of looks like other Southeast Asian clothing or Filipino, but not exactly. Oh man, uh, the Anal people. Um, If you guys want to hear the story of regarding this, let me know in the chat because it's a bit funny. Yeah. Yeah, so basically, right, when I was in class, I was out here, just doing because I had a whole list of ethnicities and I was just looking at all their different traditional clothing. So I was like, Hmong traditional clothing, Sting traditional clothing, you know, all this other traditional clothing. And then I just look up like anal traditional clothing, right? But obviously Google interpreted that as anal traditional clothing. So it was like this server does not support your search. And I was like, oh shoot. Like it literally didn't even occur to me because I was just out here, you know, just auto-filling everything into the Google images. And so I had to move location so that I could find um, you know, like a picture. And of course, there were some naughty pictures, but I didn't include them for obvious reasons. All right, and so now let's get back. The Mrokimi, so they live sort of in the Naga Hills, which is basically the area between India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and China. Oh, this one I only included for the very obvious reason that this guy looks like a complete idiot. The Tao people. So I don't know how you could like, you know, take anyone who looks and dresses like this seriously, but I guess some people do. Like, bro took the rice farmer Pac-Man MFs. Yeah, for real. For real. All right. We got the Bugis people, who I believe are in Indonesia. I just like the whole sun picture looks pretty cool. The Gadang, so these people live in the northern part of the Philippines. The Rajang, who live on some island in Indonesia. And I think their clothing also looks pretty nice. The Bahau. So they are actually the original people, some of the original people of Malaysia known as the Negritos. I think they're named that by the Spanish, which means the little black people. And yeah, we can see full grass, just everything all over their body, and then crazy masks going on there. Oh, this one has to be my favorite picture. My favorite picture of the entire slideshow is this picture. And I don't even have to explain why. So I'll have the audience interpret what interaction was going on when the photographer took this. Aren't you supposed to be wearing clothes, barbarian? Yeah. No, bro, this is like when you have negative riz and you like attract the most like ugly woman possible. Or like it's your wedding. It's like you guys know the story of like Jacob and in the Bible and he worked like 7 years to get a wife, but then uh he wakes up in the bed the next morning and finds out he slept with his sister instead and she was way uglier. This is basically what I imagine. This is what I imagine. We don't have a word for that, but remember, you're evil for colonizing us. Yeah, no, I mean these people like the Onga, yeah, they kind of deserve to be colonized, I have to say. The outside world suggests argument to my personal hypothesis is enunciated discussion. Only Sir Welch could have such a British response to this picture. Right here are the Batek people, Malaysia, Fijian people. I actually think Fijian clothing looks quite nice. I don't know what you guys think, but it's also interesting because both the men and the women are wearing a dress and it's pretty similar, but the style is different. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Fijian clothing here. Fiji is pretty nice. I agree. And also the country. I feel like I'd want to go there. Samoan clothing. Yeah, so here's Samoan clothing. This is a very cool picture. That's what it looked like more traditionally. Now it's more like this, which is a little less cool, but gives you the basic outline of, we can see again, we're both wearing skirts like men and women. Hawaiian people, right? Of course, no need to introduce Hawaii, but I do find it interesting that both these men have quite thick mustaches. Aleut people, they live in the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. And again, clear Siberian, northern Native American kind of look. Going straight past across Canada, we get to the Mohican people, New York, the Kickapoo, which I have to say is probably half of it. The reason I find it interesting is just the name. We get the Oneida people. They're also in New York, by the way. Upstate New York is where they traditionally lived. Maidu people. These guys also look fairly goofy. This guy's like, what am I doing in between these two weirdos? And yeah, they live sort of central California, so we can see kind of the Californian style reflected here. The Chemehuevi also live in California, but more Southern California, so we see more the desert kind of look and vibe going on over here. The Akimel O'odham lived in Arizona. Going down to Mexico now, we see the Purepecha. They have very interesting and unique style of clothing. So they live mainly in West Central Mexico. And now we finally get to South America. So before I say anything, let's go back to chat and then we'll discuss South America. Samoa, Hawaii, Aleutian, all Walcadian land, you criminal, you steal from the people's kingdom. Yes. Oh, and all right, guys, as I promised, right, I haven't forgotten about South America, so let's go check that out now. Yeah, so South America, um, here's some examples. So the Arhuaco, a very unique style of clothing, pretty much all white and these cool hats. Kofan, I mean, this is pretty much the stereotype, but I mean, it's true. Stereotype did exist for a reason. Some people did look like this. So the Kofan lived in Ecuador. Oh yeah, what things do you see about the Purepecha people, Mr. Sir Welch? And while he types, I'll go back. All right, the Wayu, who other than having an interestingly spelled thing, also can't say I've seen anyone who just wore clothes like this. Pretty interesting. No, that's why I'm saying like some of these things just can't be categorized. This is whole own category there. Tariana people, I believe, lived in Brazil. The Mashko Pira, again, a lot of these South, this is why I'm saying I couldn't find any classification for South Americans. Like all these different styles are all completely different. This looks totally different from this, which looks totally different from this, looks totally different from this, and from this. Um, yeah. I mean that's this is one way of covering yourself, I guess. No, not what I would have expected, but I guess it works. Native American hijabs for the Wayu, yes. They're the first true Muslims in the Americas, bro. Oh yeah, they have an interesting alphabet, and when they had a nation in the Aztecs were the biggest rival. Yeah, that's true. The Purepecha and the Aztecs, or so-called or Nahua people, they didn't get along. They didn't vibe with each other, which also proves that it's not like they were all one people, who all like fought oppression together. All right, the Ashaninka, I believe they're in somewhere in the Colombian Amazon. Yawala, ooh, bro, imagine getting like this guy did not have a good day, I can tell you. Like once you're grabbed there, that's like that should be illegal. That should be illegal what this man's doing. Can we get an F in the chat for this Yawala PT man? Yeah, here you go, F in the chat. This man may have never had kids after Viva España. That's why they call it. I don't know. I think the Yawala PT actually, I think they actually live in Brazil, not Spain. But yeah, either way, yeah, the Embera. I actually think she has very cool body tattoos, which is I usually hate tattoos, but this actually looks cool. The Embera people, the Embera Wuna. This is one of my favorite pictures. This kid just looks so nice. Looks like a great person. Also interesting black paint. Oh, the Witoto. Again, not much for me to say, but I think you can tell for yourself, right? Keep in mind again, right? All these people you've seen, they're all native South Americans. Also, yeah, maybe this sounds racist or whatever, but the native South Americans were way less advanced than native North Americans. Like, even though a lot of the native North Americans didn't have a civilization, at least, they didn't dress like this, or like this, or like this, or like this either. I wonder what the markings represent. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but of course they represent something, important, probably spiritual. All right, here are the Guajajara people. I actually thought this picture looks quite cool. And yeah, these people live in Brazil. We have the Zoe people. Yes, that's a thing. And their clothing doesn't consist of anything except for some reason this weird like pharaoh beard. That's it. So yeah, this is Zoe people right there. The Kayapo. This looks pretty cool. One of the few groups South Americans who also wore feathers as well. The Carajo. Don't ask me how they do this, but yeah, they would just cover their bodies with like these little feathers, and that was what counted as like shirts. So that's how the woman wore her shirt here, and the man is wearing his shorts by just doing that. See, this is what I'm saying. Like South American native, like native South American clothing is a whole other category. Like that's why I didn't put any category. Each group is just so different from the last. It's crazy. Kayapo looks like gay Klingons. The crowd look alright. I mean, it is kind of cool. I wouldn't want to dress like this in public, but it looks kind of cool. Uh, yeah. Again, not gonna say anything about this guy. Just take it in and absorb. This is where his breast got cut off because he's transgender. If you guys can see over there. He's actually the first trans person in the Americas. Do you know that? South America is hot, I agree, but no excuse to dress like a goofball. Here's the Karaja people. It's interesting. They have this one little cloth to cover their breasts and a couple of little things here. And then also, I guess, one little thing to also cover their privates down there as well. So I guess they're trying. These are all Brazil too. Aimoré, same thing. Basically nothing except a loincloth. The Yaminawa, also in Brazil. And yeah, just wore the grass skirt. Both the men and the women go topless. The Nambiquara. Yeah, this is the look someone gives you when you're like capping to them and they see right through your lies. This guy, I love this guy's face. I love this guy's face. The Nambiquara guy. He's like, don't be messing with me. Kanyari. Now this is some of the only nice clothing we find, and this Kanyari clothing is the typical clothing that we found in basically Peru and Brazil, which was worn by the Incas and their descendants. And it's very nice actually. This is some of my favorite, the very cool hat, the nice decorated dresses here. Very, very good overall. I don't know, something about this. And also just looks comfy too. Like I kind of want to wear something like this. Now, finally, we move down south, the Shuar, so they live in Chile, right? So they are the native Chilean people. And even though the men are shirtless, the women are fully covered, pretty much, except for the feet. Yeah, it looks pretty nice. These people look like they're having fun. Oh, and then here we have the Selknam, who are officially the stupidest looking people on the entire earth. And maybe if you're Selknam, I offended you, I'm sorry. But I'm not even gonna explain this. Just take a look at these five individuals, and it'll say everything you need to know. And this is what I mean. This is why I said South America is wild, guys. Like this is what they would wear at the male initiation. And the Selknam people lived on Tierra del Fuego, which is the most southernmost island in the entire world. Also, keep in mind that white stuff in the background is snow. So these people were going naked in the snow. But just imagine you're like gonna date someone and these are your five options. It's crazy. We gotta see the chat. Bro acting like everyday Halloween. Stalking him, what the fuck? No, I agree. Probably for intimidation or imitating the spirit. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, guys, I remember when I was looking at the Sucknum people, like I was like, what is going on with these people? It's actually crazy. It really is. Right. The Huelche also live southern Argentina. And again, for somewhere that cold, the fact that they just wear these skins and no shoes is a bit crazy, but. Okay, now we move on to Africa. So we have the Margi people in, I think, Cameroon. Hadia people, you can probably tell from the clothing is the Ethiopia. Also the hairstyle and looks a little bit. The Halaba people, they look very cool with their like green clothes, their shorts, and this really cool hat. I quite like it. They're all jumping together. Konso, I think they're somewhere in West Africa. Gurage people also live in Ethiopia, specifically in the southwest of Ethiopia. Gamo, this is also one of my favorite styles. I just love the pattern here. Like the pattern is crazy nice. The red, the yellow, the black mix perfectly together. Guy's a great beard, cool hat. I really like that. Gamo also live in southwestern Ethiopia. The Hamar people, the Uduk. Again, what's this? Like, I mean, obviously I don't wake up every day and, compare myself to other people, but I have never in my life seen anyone who like looks like this. But since it's only men who are in the chat and also probably only men who will ever watch this video. What do we think of the Uduk? Are these people okay? Almejo, those people like that's effing a-hole idolatry. What's clothes? We call them white men thing, you racist. I don't know if you remember from my earlier stream, but I was talking about the whatchamacallit, the West Papuans and how the Indonesian government forced them to wear clothes. And instead of like wearing shorts on their, you know, around their waist and all that, upper legs, they wore shorts as a hat. Because these people literally could not understand what the point of shorts were. But yeah, thoughts on the Uduk and their strange looking groins. Oh, Uncle Sam. Yo, I wasn't expecting Uncle Sam. You came in for like the funniest looking clothes. Okay, he did well, yeah, he missed 99% of the stream, but still, Uncle Sam, if you respond in the chat, I'll show you like the stupidest looking people. Like the funniest, dumbest looking clothes. All right, so I saw the barbaric clothing of the uncivilized. No, 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 Uncle Sam, you gotta see like the crazy ones. You gotta see. Are you down for that? Because I'm willing to show. All right, all right, let's do it. Let's do it. All right, so let's do this. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. All right, so we are just gonna do a rerun of South American clothing because it looks that weird. All right, so Kofan people, the guy literally has a feather through his nose. I don't know what to say. Well, he's like, this is very mild compared to what you're gonna see next. Then we got the Wayu, who are like the Muslims of Venezuela. So yeah, they had the hijab before it was cool, and actually not even the hijab, basically full on burqa. The Mashko Piro, who I don't know, I guess they never thought of like wearing, just like a robe or something, so they wear this instead, which is pretty funny. Yeah, the Yawala Piti, who is getting his family line extinguished live on camera. The Witoto, who like to paint their butt and legs too. Zoe, who are completely naked except for wearing this little pharaoh beard. And Kraho, who from a distance might look like they're wearing clothes, but you realize they're just wearing a bunch of little feathers that they stick on themselves instead of wearing like an actual shirt, which is interesting. Not sure what the point of that is. The Suya, who I don't know, just look at him. Okay, and then finally the Selknam, the most dumb-looking people of all time. And I'm sorry to say this, not because of who they are inherently, but who came up with the idea to wear this? Like you have to ask yourself, who even came up with the idea of wearing like this specifically, especially in the cold, in the snow, and you're naked and you're wearing this. Such uncivilized behavior. What's uncivilized? Everyone's equal. No, they're not. Some cultures are better than others. Selknam, like bro, Pac-Man looking ass. Yeah, Selknam, man, whole other level. Craziness. All right, so now we'll go back to where we were. Oh yeah, the Uduk, so dumb. Anyways, the Kunama actually looked pretty good, except the fact that she's not wearing a shirt. Um, the Ik people, yes, that's an actual name for the Ik. The Tubu, they live, I think, like Chad or somewhere around there. The Sarah, oh yeah, this is also easily one of the worst. This is also actually a perfect example because obviously there haven't been too many naked pictures, and I didn't include all of them in this version of the slideshow, but in the extended version you can see it. But this is the perfect example of like why it's actually good for women to wear shirt. Because I keep seeing this, right? Women who always leave their breasts out always end up with just like the most saggy, nasty looking boobs. And it's like, I mean, this looks sharp. Like that's scary. I mean, and this is not even mentioning the stupid this thing, but Yeah, let's check in the chat. Is there people in nutshell? What are you having for breakfast, a tambourine? Nah. Of course it's aging too, but like that also happens to much younger women if they're exposed all the time. It's the Mangbetu people. I mean, they cover their butt in an interesting way, I guess. The Nubians. Um, yeah, Nubians once ruled over Egypt, and they're still there in Sudan, so that's pretty cool. Morsi again, quite interesting. Surma, this is crazy. Lips, the lip thing here is going nuts. Yeah, the Didinga, so they are, I believe, South Sudan. Not much going on except some of the painting. Luo peoples. These people, I believe, are like Uganda or maybe South Sudan. This actually looks kind of cool, how they're all marching together. Shiluk also live in South Sudan. Yeah, you'll notice a lot of these people are in South Sudan. This guy also looks crazy, especially I have to say actually props to him for making this hat. Like this is a crazy looking hat. I mean, even here it says it. Alango chief showing peculiar headdress. All right, let's go back to the chat, see what's going on there. All right, the Dogon. The Dogon are known for their stilts and also their interesting masks. So we can see them here on their stilts. And then they have this whole apparel all over their face. The Vi people look fairly normal. I mean, this is the capital of Liberia, Monrovia, except the fact that this girl like just straight up has her breasts out. Gola. This also shows just how crazy of a difference there can be in size. Like this is like nothing, and then this is huge, and they're like the same age and everything. So that's crazy. Yalunka, they look fairly normal in comparison to a lot of these people. Same with the Capelli. Believe they live in Ghana. The crewmen, they live in Ivory Coast, and they have these cool hats. That's why I find that pretty cool. Balenta, Papel people. It's interesting. These look like Tintin characters. Like sort of the racist stereotype, but that's because they paint the area around their lips white, so they look like they have huge lips. And the Lebu people, Kusasi, they also live in Ghana. Same with the Mamprusi, and I think they are Muslims based on sort of the headgear. The Bariba, not sure what the mirror is doing there, but they seem to be having a lot of fun, so that's cool. I always found this picture funny. This guy's just out here like having fun, shaking his body. Let's go back. Caucasians have better clothing. Do you mean, by the way, by Caucasian, do you mean like white people or do you mean like specifically Caucasians? Because if you're talking about specifically Caucasians, I agree. Like Caucasian clothing was crazy, like crazy good. The Kiome people, I always love this. These two look like they're so happy. Fawn, I think also lives somewhere around Ghana, Togo, Benin, that area. So the Tiv there in Nigeria. The Bamileke, Bamum, the Bassa, I think they're in Ivory Coast. The Fang people, so it's an interesting name. They're in Gabon mainly, I think. And the Kele people. Mitsogo, interesting hairstyle to say the least. I'm not even sure how you do that, but it must be possible to do something like that. What's the best music architecture though? I agree with the architecture. I don't know about the best music though. Gothic architecture and medieval clothing are superior. I agree with the Gothic architecture. I don't know if I really like medieval clothing all that much. I think like Enlightenment, even Renaissance clothing looked better. But these are the Boa people. Bembe, they lived mainly in um, Zambia, I believe. Congo, I think they're in Uganda. Somali Bantu, again, obviously Somalia. The Hutu people, right? They're kind of most well known for genociding the Tutsis. And yeah, they live in Rwanda and Burundi. The Yaka people mainly lived in DRC, I think. And then these are the Tutsi people. The Great Lakes Twa, right? These are some of the only pygmies in the world, and we can tell, right? This guy is not super tall, it's just that they're super short. So it's kind of crazy looking at the height difference here. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Medieval clothing is overrated. Enlightenment had the drip. I agree with that. This is Baganda. Yes, this is my people, guys. This is like my maternal ancestry. So obviously, you know, gotta pause a little bit. Shout out, and also I actually think it looks pretty nice too, right? Like this is actually not bad clothing. Pretty colorful. Looks good. Then we have the Inkole. They also live in Uganda, and even though I'm biased towards the Baganda, they definitely dress better. Very nice. And the Luya, this guy looks, I don't know. The guy actually just looks cool because he looks so strange. Like you wouldn't want to mess with this guy. He looks unpredictable, you know. He's probably like some kind of witch doctor, but I don't know. Medieval clothing is often blackwashed into becoming dull and colored by the film industry. Luya look based. Yeah, true. So warrior's attire, yeah, probably is. The himbo. Oh yeah, so this is I always found these people super cool because you might think their skin looks a bit weird and shiny, and that's because they specifically would like put mud basically over all over their body to get this kind of look. So they live in Namibia, and so that's why they have this shiny mud-like look. The Pende, and these people actually look kind of intimidating. Like wouldn't really want to mess with them. And they got the lip thing going on. The Luba, who again I think are like Zambia or DRC somewhere like that. You have a crazy headdress there. Ngoni, sort of like northern South Africa, Zimbabwe, that area. Got the Swazi people, who obviously live Swaziland, needs no explanation, or Eswatini as it's now called. Xhosa, they live in South Africa. I actually like this quite a lot. I don't know what you guys think, but Xhosa clothing actually looks very unique, and I love the patterns. The Soto, this is really cool. I actually really like this. Soto have very cool looking clothes. I really like the blue and also yeah, the cone kind of headdress, very unique to just the Soto people. And yeah, they live in Lesotho um, and South Africa as well. All right, Songa also lives South Africa, look pretty cool. Now we get to the Caribbean, the Afro-Bahamians. Now, these people like to party and they have really cool clothing for that. Afro-Jamaicans, the Afro-Haitians. I actually quite like the Afro-Haitian. Other than the fact she looks very good, smiling, all that. She's cool headdress, nice dress as well. The Afro-Argentines. Yeah, that's another thing too. I notice of all the groups, the Africans are always like the most, smiling and happy people, even though they're like usually in the worst conditions, which really says something about them, as a race. Got the Métis people, a very interesting kind of wrap around, yeah, dress thing that they have here, and then this weird thing on top. Ambonese in Indonesia, We got the Ashkenazi Jews. And yes, we haven't got the Ashkenazi Jews yet. So here we are. We actually have two pictures, kind of the more traditional and then the more modern looking version. Yeah, I'm glad you like the Lesotho clothing as well. See if there are any other comments, and then I'll get back. We're like basically at the end at this point. Really close. Yeah, I actually quite like the Ashkenazi Jewish clothing quite a lot, especially on the left. These guys look cool. Mestizo, right? Mestizo is a very common ethnic group all across Latin America. So you can find these people from south of the US all the way down to the south of Argentina and Chile. And again, pretty simple Spanish inspired clothing, looks kind of Mexican and makes sense, right? This is what we imagine Latinos, quote unquote, wearing. Okay, and then now we got a special extra part, guys. I wasn't original. This isn't part of the original thing, but I did want to include some colonial clothing because, when it comes to the Americas, even though obviously Europeans already had their own styles of clothing, at least some of their descendants in the Americas did develop their own clothing style. And the only one we saw so far were the Afrikaners. And so, because of that, let's look at some of the other colonial clothing. So, let's just check in on the chat real quick. And yeah, Mestizo have base clothing. They basically are the indigenous, but better. All right, so yeah, let's do it. So, first we have the Australian and New Zealander. Um, and yeah, this is very common just among European populations in more desert, sort of arid climates. It looks pretty similar to the Afrikaner clothing as well. And it kind of makes sense because of the weather. And yeah, where use of cavalry is quite common. Chilean, and Chilean looks pretty cool. I like it. Bolivian and Peruvian. So yes, obviously this is only colonial to an extent. I mean, these are obviously native Bolivians and Peruvians, probably Bolivians if I were to guess. But their clothing did evolve obviously after the Spanish conquest. So this is a European style dress, right? The man is wearing European style trousers, but the hat is more native. And also, yeah, we can see they're not wearing shoes, so that's probably still a legacy of the pre-colonial past. So yeah, here we have Colombian and Venezuelan, which again does look quite similar to a lot of other Latin American clothing, especially the men, right? Just the white shirt, the white pants, you know, the little straw hat, all across Latin America. But we can see the women wore much more elaborate dresses, much wider, and I think also, at least personally, much nicer looking as well. So I quite like the Colombian and Venezuelan. All right, Spanish Caribbean. This guy looks either like a mafia boss or like someone you dance with. I can't really tell. But by Spanish Caribbean, I mean Cuba, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. And again, we see the simple, just Spanish. This is actually called I think, a Panama shirt. And then the pants, and yeah. Let's check in on the chat real quick. Yeah, names looking based when influenced by Europe. I agree. I agree. Advanced Australia Fair. All right, Mexican. All right, and you might say, hey, didn't we already have Mexican clothing already that we showed? Well, yeah, but that was like the indigenous people of Mexico. This is more just all of Mexico. Now, of course, it doesn't look that different from like the indigenous, but we can see these are more like European Mexicans that are wearing this. Of course, here we have the typical Mexican look, right? The sombrero, the sort of vest, the pants, and then the women are wearing their long dresses that are very beautiful with their floral embroidery, all that. Yeah, Mexican, this has to be one of my favorite. I mean, both men and women, they look pretty cool. So, big fan of Mexican. The vaquero, right? Here you got the Cajuns. I forgot about this actually. The Cajuns have this interesting tradition where they dress up like for carnival in like really stupid looking costumes. So yeah, here's some examples of that. And the Cajuns, by the way, are the descendants of the Acadian people who are the descendants of French people who settled in modern-day New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. And then they were deported by the British there to Louisiana. And you can learn all about that in my History of Canada video, which, okay, obviously you three who are in the chat, I know you guys already watched it, but for those who have not watched it, check that out. It's on my main channel, Micah History. Cajun be thinking Halloween's every day. Yo, Cajuns are out here just having fun, man. Western clothing, of course, this is like, your stereotypical American style, but obviously more Western American, right? This isn't what people were wearing in Ohio or Virginia. And it's influenced by a combination of Mexican and American styles. Although keep in mind, this was also worn in, the arid regions of Canada, like Saskatchewan and Alberta. We'll leave it a little longer because, we have Americans in the chat, so we'll see what they think. Western clothing is based as well. Definitely looks badass. I'll say this, I'm not really the biggest fan of it per se, but it's based. I'll say that it's based. Western clothing is based. Yeah, Uncle Sam agrees. Edward the Eighth loved dressing like that? The British monarch, really? Okay, Sir Welch, tell me in the chat why that is. In the meantime, I'll go back. Got the Métis people. The Métis people, for those of you who don't know, although because you in the chat watched my video, you do know this. They're the descendants of French and Native people in Canada who mixed in basically the plains of Canada. So they created their own culture. And so we can see that, right? Because it definitely looks very native in some ways, right? Especially the moccasins and all that, but also has a European look, especially, this lady here. So yeah. Then we got Canadian guys, and yep, I think this is an AI generated picture. I don't know, but either way, right? This is kind of your stereotype of Canada, right? The kind of plaid um, style of clothing, right, and the flannel and all that. But it doesn't look bad. I don't know what the rest of you guys think, but and yep, and that's it, guys. That is the end of the presentation. That was 546 slides. So thank you all so much for having born through that, 3 different streams. But yeah, that's the end. In American English we call play. I don't know. Is that a different pronunciation for what I said? All right, we have GC. There is a bit of a bonus thing. So the stream isn't actually technically over, but the presentation is. He was obsessed with America a little too much for a British king. Canadian clothing is overrated. Okay, sure. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the best, even though I'm Canadian. It's like, eh. All right, so let's exit this real quick. And I want to show you the other presentation. I made 2 presentations. Okay. This is this is just the original one. This is like the one with like over 1,000 or almost 2,000. So I'm not going to play it, but this is comparisons. I'm opening this because this basically is a compilation of all kind of the images that stood out to me. So this will include like the best images, the goofiest ones, the most unique, etc. All right, so obviously I'm not going to comment because we've seen all these images by now, and I don't want to make it extremely long, but I just want to show you my favorite images from the presentation because I thought it was pretty fun. So let's look at, yeah, let's look at the best clothing from the presentation. So, obviously I'm not going to stop for each one. But yeah, also, Uncle Sam, this gives you a good overview because you missed most of them, most of the streams and most of what I showed. But this basically shows you the images worth remembering from the stream. All right, so before we get to the top 100, let's just go back to the chat to see if anything's being said. Okay, no. All right, cool. Okay, each one couldn't get a criticism from me, so I guess I need not rate them. All right, so let's look at my top 100 favorite images. All right, so for the top 20, I'll just, name them, but I won't give any descriptions because you can see them yourself. But yeah, okay, just checking back in the chat. All right, so 20th, Afro-Panamanian, 19th, Lao, 18th, Fuan, 17th, Shina, 16th, Lesgin, 15th, Assyrian, 14th, Uyghur, 13th, Tajik, 12th, Nivk, 11th, Wanapom. All right, now we get top 10. Also, keep in mind, my best images are just made in terms of like the image itself, not necessarily what's in the image per se, but like just like the photography and mixed in with the clothing. So I have a different section for just the best clothing, but this is just the best images. Top 10, Dekani, ninth, Tio Chow, 8th, Kumik, 7th, Paranakan, 6th, Bulgarian, 5th, Dargan, 4th, Avar, 3rd, Dimasa, 2nd, Vietnamese, and 1st, German. And so, yeah, if for any of you who love Germany, and I know at least one person in this chat does, uh, you know, we can see what you think in the chat there. Right. Doesn't seem like much is going on in the chat, so let's just go to the next part. All right, most unique clothing. Obviously, don't need to explain. These are just the clothes that were the most that stood out to me the most, and that were the most different from everything else I'd seen. All right, so for the top 10 most unique, the Gorontalo, the Witoto, the Mbunda, the Meitei, the Kraho, the Ovimbundu, the Mi, and again, you guys remember this? The Mi people. It's not a country I detest. That's good. Third, Kodava. Second, Marind. Oh yeah, I'm just remembering this now. Marind. This guy looks so dumb, man. So goofy. Let's see. Then you don't know Korea, China, Serbia, Ukraine, or Palestine. Just kidding. And number one, the Salknam. And of course, I mean, how could I not? Like, there truly is nothing more unique than what these people wear, or rather, the lack of what they're wearing, I should say. Just checking on the chat real quick. Salknam. Masters of fashion. True. Just perfect. Yes, we all need to dress like the Salknam. All right, now, next, the goofiest. So here we go. I mean, we've mostly done this, so I'm not going to spend much time, but, you know, you go. And yes, we did include a European group here. But it is mostly South America, or yeah, South America and Africa. Yes, top 10 goofiest looking people: the Dogon, the Mursi, the Uduk, the Surma, the Pende, the Sara, the Mi, the Tau, the Marind, and of course, number one, the Selknam. Look at you, Selknam, um, winning once again. Anyhow, I think this is all well done. Thank you. I mean, I spent a lot of time doing this, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. For the Imperium. All right, now let's move on. Now let's look at the nicest clothing, right? Because we've looked at the dumb looking clothing, so let's look at some of the nicest. All right, and of course, this is just my opinion. You guys, of course, can have different opinions. So, yeah. Oh, you're doing a good bit of research on the Selknam. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad this is prompting some people to learn some new stuff. All right, so 19th, the Sotho. I am going to comment on this part because, out of like 1,700, the fact that I narrowed it down to only 19 means I should talk about why they're my favorites. So yeah, 19th Sotho. Why? I just love the blue. The hat looks cool. They also look like they're having fun. They have very unique blankets. What can I say? It looks very cool. Tuvin. Not as fancy, but I love kind of the fur-looking clothes. The woman has a cool hat there. Um, wearing the robe as well. Nice embroidery. So I really like the Tuvin. All right, we got the Gabagi. Right, the Gabagi again, simplicity done well is what I was saying earlier. Right, so not too much embroidery or patterns, but I really like it. Both what the man is wearing and what the woman is wearing. Good symmetry, patterns, all that. Nice use of the color blue. I also do like the color blue, I have to say. So yeah, Gabagi. All right, next we have the Nubian. Again, both the man and the woman. The man's wearing something very simple, but it looks very cool. The one big stripe, and the woman has very nice, you know, veil that she's wearing over her head. A decorated dress, but not something that's too much. So yeah, it looks very nice. Kanyari, I already explained this earlier, but again, just looks so comfortable. Um, very like nice color for the dress along with the embroidery down there at the bottom. The hat looks cool, so I like that. Yakut, I mean, they look very nice, both in terms of how they look and also their clothes. The white looks very good. They have just the right amount of jewelry and a good amount of, decoration on their clothing. So I like that. Ashkenazi Jewish. Reason I like it, I don't know. I think I just like fur anything, and the fur hats go hard. And also kind of the fact that they're all there together, wearing their robe and all that. It looks cool, like the Ashkenazi Jews. Hmong, again, very nice, just very pretty overall, in terms of all the stripes, the patterns, the flowers, all that looks good. Afro-Caribbean, again, not super simplistic, but very elegant, and that's good. She looks like she's having a lot of fun. Yeah, very nice dress, both under and over. So that's why I like it. Japanese. Now, what the Japanese man's wearing is meh, but the woman's dress is insane because it has all this nice, nature decoration and all that. So looks great. The Ibibio, as I said, she had the best gele. The gele is this little head tie that she's wearing over her head. Um, you know, Incredible use of lace and embroidery, and the man also looks good, so I like that. Portuguese, yeah, same thing. I mean, again, it all comes down to just the decoration, the floral decoration, the socks, the shoes, the headdress, all looks very nice. So I really like the Portuguese. Seventh, we have the Miao. I love um, the headdress that they wear with all the, you know, gold and silver and all the ornaments. Crazy nice jewelry down here. The dresses look great with all the different stripes and patterns. So I really like that. Bulgarian, she looks very nice, but also her clothes too. So again, with all the little metal jewelry and decoration, especially the belt here. Um, Again, sort of all the patterns. Looks very good. Tio Chow, again, simple but very nice. Looks flowy, looks comfortable. And yeah, nice floral decoration. Assyrian, this guy just looks incredible. Like, I'd want to be dressed like this, even just on a regular basis. Perfect beard, perfect hat, perfect symmetry, great patterns on his pants, his shirt, everything. So I really like the Assyrian guy. Vietnamese, other than the decoration, which is already just crazy nice, I love the hat. I love the dress that she's wearing. Super symmetrical, great patterns, not too much, not too little, and kind of the use of the color red is great. Second, Peranakan. I also just think this looks really good, partly because the decoration, but the dress itself with the floral motifs and everything, and then the shirt that she's wearing on top, made out of silk, all combines very well, and then the hair is well done. And finally, number one, my favorite clothing of all time, of the 1,700 cultures I looked up, are the Komering. Because basically, so in case you don't know, by the way, the Komering live in Indonesia. Um, and the reason the Komering won is just because the man and the woman just look great. I mean, you could say the woman's a bit exaggerated, and I would agree with that. But the use of gold is exquisite. It's so well decorated and detailed, very symmetrical, lots of nice little patterns, and just the amount of effort it took to just design all this is crazy. The hat looks really cool, and then same with the woman, all the jewelry there, very nice headdress, you know. I mean, I think this is much, much better than like, this really boring, white dress, completely white dress and, completely black suit that men wear at weddings. Like I think this is much better wedding attire. And then of course the background is great. But yeah, so there you go. That is my favorite um yeah, style of clothing in the world. But yeah, let's see what you guys think. Um Ashkenazi Jews have base clothes unless they reform. Banzai. Well, let's see. Is this? Oh, yeah. And there we go, guys. So now I am completely done. That is the end of the presentation. So, yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for making it all the way here. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something new. I hope there's a culture that you want to learn more about. And yeah, I hope that you found, that the globe has so many different cultures. And even though there's so many different styles of clothing, with the exception of mainly the naked people, you know, it almost universally looks good no matter where you go. There's some styles I like more than others, especially Southeast Asia, Indonesia. That area is probably my favorite. But great stuff in Nigeria, um, great stuff in Europe, a lot of really nice clothes in East Asia, um, even a lot of nice stuff I would say in South Asia and among the Native Americans. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. You can write your final thoughts in the comments and then I will leave. And then I will turn all these streams into one massive video. At least I'm going to try. Maybe I'll have to split it in two because I don't know if YouTube will be able to support that. But yeah, these will be up in the public and I'll cut out all the, phone calls and interruptions and, waiting around for people. So we won't have to see any of that. But yeah, I want to especially thank, Julius being my number one supporter once again, Sir Welch for coming to most of the streams, and then even Uncle Sam for coming at the end. Perfect 10. All right, great. Glad you guys enjoyed it. Also, I will make I not I will. I've already made a map so you guys can better visualize in your head where all these different clothing styles are. So I will send that on Discord. For the Emperor. Oh, yeah, and thanks a lot, Uncle Sam, for showing up. I appreciate it. All right, any more final thoughts? Otherwise, I'm gonna end the stream now. All right. Okay, well, thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow or